Hello and welcome back to the port. I'm the Guard Major, and this is a review of the Japanese Tier 7 Premium Cruiser Suzuya, available as the final reward of the Limit Breaker campaign if you have amity backing, which will cost you 2,500 doubloons. Now this is a Tier 6 and 7 game of Capture the Base on two brothers. On the enemy team we have an Akatsuki, a Udachi, a Flint, an Okachov, Megami, a Vladivostok in a division with an Iowa, Richelieu and a Massachusetts. All those battleships do concern me because my armour is only really sufficient to resist 14-inch guns. However, we'll talk about that a bit later on. So, Suzuya is a Megami class, cruiser, whether you want to call her light cruiser or heavy cruiser. She's in the format of a light cruiser. However, what the Japanese did was they enabled these cruisers to have the capability to be upgraded to heavy cruisers, hence why we have the Megami, which is her sister ship, which has 8-inch guns rather than 6-inch guns. Anyway, so Suzuya was launched in 1935 and completed in 1936. However, she went straight into reserve, awaiting a rebuild due to some defects which were with the Megami class. These defects were things like the superstructure being a little bit too weak, the welding not being up to scratch, and also the ships were quite top heavy. So she was completed in the format that she was in. However, she then went straight back into refit in 1937, where she was then refit and rebuilt, and she came out of that with 8-inch guns, which was all completed in 1939. So she never actually ever saw combat in the form that she's here. However, it's always interesting to have a representation of this cruiser in this format. So as always, in comparison to the Tech Tree ships, the Tech Tree Tier 7 cruisers, what do we have? Well, survivability wise, you have the joint 4th lowest HP of 38,000. You also have a low HP pool of 50,000. 50,768. So it's not exactly lots of HP there. Now, you have a below average torpedo reduction, which is only 10%. When it comes to armour, I've already kind of alluded, you have a bit of an issue when it comes to anything more than 14-inch guns, but we'll nip back to the port and have a look at that now. So here we are back at the port, taking a look at the armour scheme of the Suzuya. So obviously, let's start off with the nose and the stern. Practically 25mm plating, which is only really good to ricochet up to 14-inch AP, and as you're probably noting with this ship, you are seeing a lot of that 25mm plating, or a lot of that green, I guess you could say. So if we take those off, this is one of the reasons why you don't want to be battle tanking something like a battleship with 15-inch guns. It's going to obviously go straight along the length of the ship, but it also means that trying to angle against that is going to be quite difficult. Now, obviously we do have that torpedo protection, but that's only some 12mm plating there. That's just the torpedo bulge, but it's worth noting the location of the torpedo bulge is running from approximately under X turret to under B turret, I guess you could say. So it covers like the central 2/3 of your ship, maybe the central 2/4, or 1/2 I should really say. But yeah, worth noting. Superstructure, not a lot of it is the best way to put it. It's very minimal. The reason being is obviously those top heavy issues that this class of cruiser did have. Note it is 16mm plating, so not really going to be resisting much, so let's make that disappear. Now the upper armoured bout, or the casement armour, most of it is 25mm thick, as you're seeing. However, there is this little bit of a band of 30mm thick. So the 25mm thick, the green, as you can see, is only going to be sufficient to ricochet up to 14-inch AP, whereas the 30mm thick is actually sufficient to ricochet 16-inch AP shells. However, there's not a lot of it there, and therefore it's very difficult to say try and maximize its potential. Anyway, let's make that disappear. Then the turrets. Well, your turrets again are mostly covered in 25mm plating, which does mean that they can probably be knocked out by 15 and 16-inch battleship AP shells. So your turrets, the survivability of those turrets isn't amazing. Is the best way to put it, unfortunately. But yeah, it's nice to see their positioning, and you can kind of appreciate how B turret doesn't have the greatest angles to the front. However, it does allow for when you're kiting, you can bring 3 turrets onto the front. And when you're kiting from the rear, obviously you're relying on X, Y, and A turret. Going on to the citadel, as you're seeing, there is a central portion of it which is above water. For those of you who are interested in where to find the citadel, it's basically running above water behind X turret and from behind C turret. Practically in that central half. Now it is slightly turtle backed, however if things are getting close they're going to be quite happy to aim at that slightly lower part which is practically flat against the incoming shells, which obviously isn't going to be good news for any incoming shells, well for you at least if you're sailing in this ship. But also the citadel does extend all the way forward to the front of A turret and all the way back to the rear of Y turret. But yeah, there's nothing really much more to add on regards to that. Now, I guess maybe it's worth mentioning that there is a part of the armour which is up to 140mm thick on the outside, which could ricochet any AP shells. However, the amount of it which is above water is quite minimal, and therefore I wouldn't want to rely upon it when I have to come up against a battleship. When you consider that if you're coming up against a battleship, you have this tiny banding which can ricochet close to the waterline, you have another band that can ricochet quite high in your ship, and then you have a large chunk of this very thin, slightly thin I guess you could say, because it can still ricochet 14-inch guns, but that does mean that if something can punch through that, they could probably say find the front of your citadel because it is stepped. So I'd say if you're coming up against this and it's trying to angle against you, you probably want to try aiming almost just below the bridge, with the intention to maybe punch through that armour and hitting the step of the citadel. At least that would be my advice to a battleship with 15 and 16-inch guns. Well, that's the Suzuya and her armour scheme, so let's go back to the game. Welcome back. So moving on to artillery, what do we have? Well, we have 15 6-inch guns, which is probably the big selling point of this cruiser. Now these are mounted in 5 triple turrets. We have A turret, B turret, and then super firing C turret. So B turret can't fire directly to the front. However, at the rear we have X turret super firing over Y turret. Now A, B and C turret all face forwards as well, so there's no strange rotations like we get on the Mayuku. Now when it comes to reload, you have the joint 4th fastest reload of 10 seconds. You also have a just below average range of 15.3 kilometers. Furthermore, you have a joint above average turret traverse speed of 25.7 seconds per 180 degrees of rotation. Now you have a just below average HE shell damage of 2,700 per shell. You also have the lowest fire chance of 11%, and the joint second worst AP shell damage of 3,300. However, you have the second best HE DPM, mostly due to the sheer number of guns you've got. You also have the 4th best AP DPM and the 3rd highest fires per minute. Now when it comes to the torpedoes, you have 4 quadruple launchers. These are 2 per side. When it comes to the angles, very much like the Megami, mostly rearward facing. So a little bit of a downside, I guess you could say, not being able to bring those torpedoes to the front. Now these torpedoes are exactly the same as the Megami, as we've already alluded to. They have the longest reload of 109 seconds per launcher. However, the torpedoes do have the highest damage of 17,233. They also have a large detectability and a long range, detectability of 1.7 kilometers and a range of 11 kilometers. Just seeing those battleships moving into the center, so I think we will have to start assisting with that. So we're going to start turning in now. Now the torpedoes are also quite slow as well, with only 56 knots. So it means that, probably because they're so hard hitting, they've been designed to give enemies an acceptable amount of time to respond to those incoming torpedoes. So probably wideband torpedoes and the like are not going to be the trick up her sleeve. When it comes to manoeuvrability, you're the joint second fastest at 34.5 knots. You also have the second largest turning circle, 750 meters, and the second fastest rudder shift of 6.8 seconds. When it comes to the concealment, you have a better than average detectability by sea, which is 12.3 kilometers. You have an average detection from the air, which is 7.4 kilometers, and the second best detectability when firing in smoke, which is only 6 kilometers. When it comes to the consumables, nothing really surprising here. You can have 2 sonar, these will detect ships at 4.4 kilometers, torpedoes at 3.1 kilometers, has a 96-second duration and a 180-second reload. But this could be swapped out for the defensive AA consumable. Again, you'll only get 2 of them, and these will improve your average AA damage by 200% for 40 seconds with a 150-second reload. As per practically most tier 7 cruisers, you do come with a repair party. You get 2 of these, and these will heal 228 HP per second for 28 seconds, which means that each repair party will recover you 6,384 HP. Furthermore, you can have a catapult fighter. Now, we don't have many details regarding the capabilities of the fighters at the moment, since they've been removed. Those details have been removed from the game. However, you get 3 of them, and they have a 100-second duration and an 80-second reload. Now, as always, down the description will be the commander build and the ship modules used. Modules, I've taken aiming systems module 1, steering gears module 2, steering gears module 3, and gunfire control systems module 2. And it's also worth noting, as a premium ship, she does come with a premium permanent camouflage, which is a Type 9, and most amusing. Right, so we're going to switch our guns now over to the left, and we're going to start heading up towards the enemy base and see what we can do there. So, now we can put the notebook down and we can start paying attention. So we've only managed to do 35,000 damage. We did manage to get a lucky hit on the Akatsuki in the smoke screen. And I know that the start of this may have been a little bit painful to watch as I was slowly cruising around at 3/4 speed. Let's have a look at that mini-map. I've got 2 options here. I can either assist with their base or defend our base. I think I'm going to assist, There's 1 enemy DD left, which is a Udachi. I think that's going to be the biggest concern, but I'm noting that the base is not contested, it's still being captured, which is a good thing to know. So, might as well continue talking. To get 2 turrets on target, you can pretty much do that any angle. To get 3 turrets on target, say forward, you do have to... You can stay nicely angled, but if you want to bring all your turrets to bear, you do have to go practically broadside on, which is a bit of a downside of this. If you want to maximise your DPM out of this cruiser, you are going to have to stick yourself broad on. So that's one of the reasons why I've gone for double steering gears, I guess you could say. It allows you to be quite kitey. Being kitey obviously means that you can flick out, fire your guns, and then flick yourself back in. However, obviously that thin armour can be a bit of a downside. Only able to resist 14-inch guns at tier 7 is a bit of a downside, really, when you consider practically all tier 7 battleships are 15-inch guns or larger. Legendary tier battleships are 16 and 18-inch guns, and it's only really, say, tier 6 battleships where you kind of stand some form of a chance in order to resist the incoming shots, and that would have to be from things like the Scharnhorst and the King George V, I guess you could say. No, enemy Udachi now gone. I don't think we can do much about the value of his stock, so I think we're just going to turn up and help capture the base. Might as well launch our catapult fighter for spotting potential, you never know. But I think the Megami's gone way out there. So it looks like this game's going to be over in 25 seconds. Might see if we can maybe talk about kiting away. There's obviously 2 turrets there, and I think you can easily get 3 turrets rearwards because of a turret, but if you want to bring B and C turret on, you're going to have to again go quite broad on. But obviously she can make quite a nice kiting away because she has those rearward facing torpedo launchers. So only 35,000 damage. Managed to assist in capturing the base, but not really doing too much. However, still coming in third, so I can't really complain then, I guess you could say. Especially when I'm distracted doing the review. I managed to walk away with 114,000 credits for premium count and a rare credit booster as always. Ship service cost obviously about 140,000 credits in this case, which is supposed to be about 136, give or take 10%. So that's all within their remit. Yeah, not a bad cruiser really, quite a nice HE spammer. She's the very reason why the Americans built the Helena class. The Helena class was the Americans' response to the concept of this cruiser. However, the Americans didn't know that the Japanese were just going to swap the turrets out as soon as the Japanese knew that they were going to be setting onto a war footing, I guess you could say. Oh well, I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Enjoy this content, feel free to subscribe. Down in the description, modules, commander build, link to the Patreon if you want to support the channel on Patreon, and if you are a patron, your lovely names will appear on the end screen as we roll out. Also, email address to the channel if you want to send in any of your own game captures. Until next time, I'm the Gareth Major, and back to the port.
Hey, hey, clear the way, here comes the galloping Major. Bumpity, 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 bump. Get out of the way there, you fellows, unless you want me to run you down. I guess this is the life. Now, hey, hey, clear the way, here comes the galloping Major.